Hello everyone. Today, as a part of my CAST project, I'll be talking to you about the reasons leading up to Second World War, what had happened before and what caused it. As you can see once again, here we have a map, and it is a map of Europe, a map of Central Europe with a bunch of dates. So let's begin with our class. So, after the First World War, Germany had to sign Versailles Treaty, which we all know from our history classes. And what were the results of this treaty? Territorial loss. In case of Germany, it was this region known as Alsace-Lorraine. It was ceded to France. They lost small chunk of land to Belgium on the Belgian border. They lost Katowice here, a small part of Silesia, and here, like the region known as Greater Poland today, which could be shown as this, with the Poznan Edit Center, and then the region known as Gdansk, which was also known as the Polish corridor back then, which is the region of this. So it is roughly 70% of Germany. Aside from that, they were faced with a limitation on their army, which was limited to 100,000, and they also had to pay reparations to the Allies. So this was the Versailles Treaty, and as Germany struggled with paying this debt, France and Belgium decided to invade this coal-rich region of Germany known as Rhineland or Ruhr, depending on the language you're speaking. And this was the state of Germany in the early 20s and early 1920s and 1930s. So, to begin, after the First World War, Germany was facing economic problems, and they took some loans from USA, and things were somewhat settled. And what was also happening meanwhile? The person you all know from our history classes, Adolf Hitler. He was, at this time, working for the German intelligence, and one day he went to a beer hall, listened to some people. He agreed with what they were saying, he spoke there, became popular. And in 1921, he became the leader of that party, which was known as German Workers' Party, which he changed to German National Socialist Workers' Party, which became NSDAP in German, shortly. And they started their politics. They were inspired by Mussolini. For example, Mussolini in Italy became the prime minister in 1924, or the Duce as he called himself, which was a great inspiration for fascists all across the world at that point, which actually prompted Hitler and his Nazi party to attempt a coup, which is known as the Beer Hall Putsch. And he was imprisoned after this because the attempted coup failed and they were arrested, and he spent some months in a jail in which he wrote his book together with Rudolf Hess, known as Mein Kampf, or My Struggle in English. However, until the Great Depression, until 1929, Hitler's party received minimal votes. They were heard, they were there, but they were not so popular. And why did Great Depression make them more popular? Because it was something they were claiming in a way. Like while the mainstream parties were talking about the good things about the economy in 20s, like how well Germany was doing after the years of defeat, how well things were going to be, the crash happened, and due to their propaganda, in a weird way, these people predicted it. So it gave them more credibility. And sooner or later, they were elected. Like, they were the largest party in the German parliament. And especially after the fire in Reichstag, which is still a mystery up to this day, Hitler became the chancellor, and he was given many authorities, which he used to close the Communist Party, for example. And when the President Hindenburg died in Germany, he declared a referendum and asked people, would you like me to be your Führer, or leader in English? Which was quite, let's say, it is speculated that the referendum was not the most fair one historically. Like even the ballots had like yes written big fonts and no written on small fonts on them. So there is some skepticism surrounding all this election. But this is what happened, and he became the Führer with ultimate power. And what then? What then? So he took charge, he started shaping the country, talking about claims, revising the Versailles Treaty, and Versailles Treaty was the main talking point of the Nazis because they wanted to revise it, change it, make it more fair, make Germany good again, great again. That was their idea. So, and Rhineland, we're back here in this region. So, in 1930, the French withdrew from Rhineland, but Rhineland was still a zone that had to be demilitarized by the Germans. German army could be here, but could not be here. In 1936, as an attempt to challenge the power of France and UK, Germany sent some units to Rhineland and denounced the demilitarization of the region, which Allies did not react to as a part of the policy known as the appeasement. The next important event after Rhineland was 2 years later in 1938, March 13. There was a referendum in Austria which had majority, over 90% yes, in which they agreed to be a part of Germany. And again, this was an election with many concerns surrounding its fairness because the local Nazi party did some intimidation. It's actually speculated that some ballots have been faked and many other concerns surrounding the event. So in that day, our map became this to show you the difference. This is the map in 1938, March. Right after this, just a few months later, in September 30, 1938, in Munich, which is a city here in southern Germany, it was agreed that these regions of Czechoslovakia will become a part of Germany because they had a German minority in it, and therefore it had to become a part of the German Empire, as they called it. And in this conference, Czechoslovakia wasn't invited, and for the sake that there won't be a war in Europe, the UK and France just allowed Hitler this bit. And in this treaty, Germans were not the only country that also acquired land. For example, in this treaty, Hungary annexed southern Slovakia, which is a region with some Hungarian minority, and Poland annexed this region, which had some Polish minorities. So overall, to make their border revision and expansionism legitimate, they also allowed Czechoslovakia's neighboring countries grab themselves some land as well. So now, as of September 1938, this is our map. Germany is getting bigger. And a few months later, what happened? And just a few months later, in March 1939, well, Hitler said Czechoslovakia is a threat because they have access to our country and they're a threat to us, therefore they should be a part of us. So this part of Czechoslovakia became a German puppet known as the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia. Hungary acquired more land, like this, and here Slovakia became a German puppet. The difference in between these two states is that this part was supposed to become German, go through full assimilation, genocide, and be a part of the German Empire, and this part was just like a space that they allowed Slovaks, which was later on invaded in the war. So, as of March 1939, this is how the borders look. And at this point, Allies started questioning their policy, like, is this appeasement really working? We're giving him everything, and he keeps expanding. So they said Czechoslovakia is going to have lost appeasement, and although they said this, and although it's skipped in most of the history classes, in March 23, 1939, Germans also annexed this region from Lithuania, which is known as Memel, but it's a small region, so people most of the times overlook it. So now we are like this. This is the Germany as of spring 1939. And in September, they started demanding specifically this place, but Germans wanted more. This place was said to be dividing Germany into two. Similar arguments like, Czechoslovakia being a threat to Germany. Germans wanted this place, especially this city known as Gdansk in Polish, Danzig in German. It had a German minority there. They had all the reasons according to themselves, and when the Allies said, no, we won't allow you this, in September 1939, they declared war. And when they were done with invading Poland, the borders can be described as this. And before that, they agreed with the Soviets that they would split the land. So Poland was annexed accordingly with roughly these borders. This entire region went to Germans. This region became the state known as a general government. And these regions went to Soviets together with the Baltic states in the upcoming days. And some lands were given back to Slovakia, and like the lands that the Poles annexed after the Munich conference, like some small adjustments here, for example, and here, nothing much. So these were the borders in year 1939. Right after the war started and the invasion of Poland was over. We'll be continuing another video about what happened after this point on. Thank you for listening. We hope you find this video useful. Have a nice day.